Well, the South African agent for the Sinovac vaccine is Newzroom. Its Chief Operating Officer is Anton Arendse. Anton, good afternoon to you. Obviously, you've got to start with, how is this trial going to work? How are you going to manage it?
Yeah, so thank you, Stephen. You'd have had the clip from Dr. Sanet. So we effectively, Newzroom becomes the in-country sponsor along with Sinovac, and so we'll be managing the project for the next 12 to 15 months. And we've brought in, we have some very key and strategic partners, including Logic Trials, Bark Laboratories, who would be doing, all of the necessary logistic and lab support. The project itself will be run across 7 sites in the Western Cape, Gauteng in the northwest, and we would be targeting a group of around 2,000 kids, the children, adolescents, and toddlers. And in the clip, Sanet would have given you a detailed breakdown of of the various age groups and when we would begin to enroll them.
How do you identify which children to use?
Well, the 7 sites that have been enrolled to undertake this study, they're long established. They have been doing a fair number of trial work outside of COVID. And in fact, quite a few of them have previously been involved in some COVID studies. So they have been chosen. They've been chosen based on various categories, but largely because of their proximity to, to appropriate cohort of people, their ability to have done work with pediatrics previously. And then also their experience in respect of COVID vaccines. So I raise this because they in turn have established relationships with communities and people from whom they are able to draw adequately for the study to take place.
Anton, I mean, I know you're going to be asked this. I'm sure you've been asked this a million times since this morning. Is it safe to test on children? How do you make sure that it is?
So there are a few aspects, Stephen. The first is that this is not the first battery of tests that are being run using Sinovac. The phase 1 and phase 2 studies have been done in China, as well as in Chile and Indonesia. And in fact, in those 3 countries, Coronavac has been approved for emergency use for specifically this cohort of population below 17 years. The vaccine itself is the very same Coronavac that's been approved for use in South Africa. You may recall that SAHPRA approved this vaccine in July. So this is the very same vaccine that's been used. And its safety and efficacy has already been proven. So for us, those begin to give us fair confidence that we have a vaccine that is safe to use. I think a further point that needs to be made is that in those the phase 1 and phase 2 trials that were done, in particular China, there had been very little to no serious adverse events reported during those phases of the study. So we are confident that we'll be able to run a successful trial in South Africa.
So, I mean, as I understand it, the Sinovac vaccine is registered for use by the SA Health Product Regulatory Authority. So your vaccine can be used for adults. It's registered for adults, not for children. That's why you have the trial, obviously. But it's not actually being used, is it? I mean, I find this slightly curious because we know the Johnson & Johnson Pfizer vaccines are being used. Do you think it's going to be used in the near future?
Well, that's an interesting question, Stephen. So you would recall that when SAHPRA approved the use of Coronavac in South Africa, there were a number of conditions. One of those conditions was that the 2.5 million vaccines that would be or that could be procured would need to be done via the Department of Health. So we have essentially put everything in place for that procurement to take place. And it now falls to the Department of Health to procure those vaccines. I think a further point that does need to be mentioned here, Stephen, and there are two that I'd like to make. The first is we have been receiving increasing interest around the release of Coronavac in South Africa, and in particular people who have done detailed work and study around how these vaccines are constituted. You have the newer technologies used by Pfizer, J&J, so spike protein, RNA, and then you have more traditional based vaccines such as Sinovac